taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast for June 30th, 2018. My name is Ashenity, powered by a reasonable amount of pure hype, as always, and I'm here, as always, with Cyber City. And how are you this morning, sir?
Morning. We got lots of news today. Lots of news. And some breaking news, too.
Absolutely. We got a little bit of breaking news about Sony that we're going to start off with here, just right off the bat, but the major stuff, of course, that we're going to be talking about is Cyberpunk 2077, and a little bit about EA as well. So,
all new info too on the Cyberpunk stuff. We're not rehashing anything anymore. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So that there's been a lot of info dropping this week, and Obsidian has pieced it together. So we will see what he's come up with in a few minutes here. If you're listening live this morning, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. Super chats and questions from sponsors are guaranteed to be read out loud on today's show as long as they conform to the basic standards of human decency. So,
and YouTube monetization.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on with Sony? Sony is...
So Todd Howard called out Sony today, which was, or not today, in an article that went live late last night, early this morning, depending on where you live in the planet. And it's very interesting. He basically said, look, we want to do crossplay. We want to have it so that you can, if you have an Xbox and your buddy has a PlayStation or vice versa, or a PC added in there somewhere, you can't play together right now. Sorry. And the reason for that, he was very clear, is that Sony is not playing ball with this. So this is what this is the big stopper right now with this crossplay. So and we've been seeing this with Fortnite, especially in the last week. This has been kind of growing in the attention, and people are generally really kind of PO'd at this. It's like, sorry, you can't play with your friends. We care about money. And the reasoning for this was pretty much just that. The reasoning was basically 2 points they raised. One is they don't want people buying an Xbox game and then plugging it into their PS4 digitally via, I own this game, so therefore I can download it on any platform and then play it there. But this is not an issue. Like this isn't even an issue, especially in Fortnite. Fortnite is free to play. You don't have the same concept behind the digital coding for game sales in this scenario. It really doesn't work. So this is a really fringe complaint that they're saying. And the other thing that they're saying is that they don't want the player experience to be ruined by them other pesky gaming consoles and systems. Meaning that they don't want you, the Sony player, to encounter those evil Xbox players, or heaven forbid those supremacist PC master racers. They don't want to throw in a meme there. They don't want you to have the accessibility to play with these people because they fear that the experience would not be good. It's like, okay, neither of these complaints can really hold water. Like, this is really kind of disappointing overall.
It's a very EA style response.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to EA too today. So this has been really disappointing, and it is proving to be very much a lightning rod for the community. So this is really important. If you are a console player in with Sony, let them know. Let them know that you want crossplay, because especially when it comes to free to play games, like, there's no excuse. There's just no excuse. Mm-hmm. It's not that there's some really difficult thing.
It's not some big technical thing that
it's
not
a code that has to be overcome. It is simply just a switch.
Mm-hmm.
And Fortnite has accidentally switched it a few times to prove the fact that it does in fact work, and it doesn't harm PlayStation at all. So yeah, this is big talk coming from Sony with not a whole lot of weight behind it. And if they don't get on this, like if they don't improve or find some kind of workaround so that when you're playing these big games, you can play with your friends and your buddies, like Microsoft's on the warpath, and overall PC sales have been climbing. Yeah, they're top dog right now, but what if they make a mistake? What if there's one really bad thing that happens with the next launch for the next console for them? If that goes poorly, we can see as much of a shift as we saw between in the last generation. Like the last generation, Xbox was top dog and Sony was second place. We can see that happen again. And by the way, these commercials with Microsoft and Nintendo working together, those are absolutely hilarious.
I haven't seen any of those yet.
Oh, they're bloody brilliant. Go check them out after the stream. They truly are quite hilarious.
Will do. Sorry about Cyb's mic being a little quiet at the beginning there. I think I fixed that. Hello to everyone who's talking in the chat there. Nicola, hello. Dancing on the Ashes, Megan, and Nova Wolf. We've got some and QZZZZ. I don't know if you mean it's quiet overall or just that Cyb's mic was quiet. Hopefully the volume levels are balanced out. I don't know what I'm saying. Dancing on the Ashes says, Sony really needs to get over their isolationist stand. It's getting ridiculous. And Megan says, gosh, diddly darn it, Sony, why? I love it. Nova Wolf. God forbid gamers play in harmony. Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, Notional and Blunt Man. Welcome, everybody.
So another little bit of news that came out this week, mainly pertaining to EA. There were several things that kind of were really exposing this week. EA has the gall to say, we've come to a point where we need to respect mobile games as much as console games. Do you want to know why EA is on the way down? Do you want to know why that in 3 to 4 years, I think we're going to be seeing the absolute collapse of EA as a studio? That's why. It's console games are a completely different experience than mobile games. Mobile games, there are a handful of them that have a good storyline, an engaging storyline. The vast majority of them are just cash cows that milk really, 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 and I don't know how I can say this anymore, like really, really low end like gamers. I'm not saying low end as in like bad. I'm like I don't know how's a better way to put this.
Are you talking about how
the ultimate? They're the ultimate like casual gamer, like people who exclusively play on mobile game apps.
Okay, yeah.
It's like they it's just there's just no comparison now, and the fact that most of them are just these cash cows where, again, it's like I'm checking some out today and I'm looking, load up a new game, look at it, and it's like, look at the store. It's like I could spend $180 and effectively get like one character in a game that has a character like base of like 40, 50, 100 characters. I can spend $180 and get one character. This is not a real game. This is just loot box the game, the experience. It's like, and again, there are a handful of engaging, interesting games. There's a lot of story games on mobile that are basically kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, which I'm glad those games have come back, and I'm glad that they are both kind of the game and the book, because I used to read the choose your own adventures all the time. I'm glad that those things are finding a way back now, but as far as like general like where they are, what they're doing, what experience we're getting out of them, mobile games are not equivalent to console games. And if a major studio like EA is going, hey guys, we're going to take one of your favorite, one of the most iconic series in video gaming history, and we're going to release it as a light mobile game that basically has no strategy but has a lot of monetization behind it. Sorry, you're not going to be, this isn't going to end well for you,
right?
EA.
Now, just for context, perhaps you should explain, how is this different from what Bethesda did, say, with Fallout Shelter, or
well, because Fallout Shelter is an actual game. Like, you don't actually have to spend money on Fallout Shelter. You can play it on the PC. It was designed as an experience that you know, a good game. This is one of the few games that, like I said, are a good game. This is overall, there you don't have that experience. You can put up all of the games that are released onto mobile app stores every week, and you can throw a dart, and out of 100, if you hit 99 of them, you know that those are all going to be the cash-based loot box experience games, and you might have one out of the 100 that is decent. In your chance of getting that alone as a really, like, not an avid gamer, a real casual gamer, you're not going to even understand the difference, really.
It is frustrating trying to find a good game to play on mobile, just to sort of wind down kind of a thing. There's some really good puzzle games that I enjoy, but even a lot of those are riddled with ads everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, puzzle games are like okay, things like, you know, Sudoku, or games that are actually like test your or you know, games that exercise your brain, right? Okay, those are decent games, but they're not console equivalent games. Sudoku
right, exactly, for sure.
You can't get Sudoku, put it up on a console and have it as a #1 bestseller. Like, you can have it as a small mini app or a small mini game within a game, and it receive a lot of positive praise. But you can't build an entire game off of some of these really simple concepts. Like, I play a 3-dimensional, yes, play 4D chess and 3-dimensional tic-tac-toe. But both of these apps are not, they're not cash-based. Like, I don't log in and get, you know, 20 minutes of ad reels saying, hey, spend the latest, spend $20 on the latest loot crate pack, and you might get a pink dot instead of the red dot for your, you know, 3-dimensional tic-tac-toe. It's like, that doesn't happen. And the fact that EA is trying to make this happen means that they're headed down a very, very bad road as far as, like, insulting their gamer base. They're also releasing stats on what you're going to potentially get inside their loot boxes for their FIFA game, because they're trying to beat the various countries around the world that are saying, hey, loot boxes are basically gambling. So they're trying to, like, man up a little bit more, and they're trying to, like, show number stats. Now, this is the funny thing.
Oh, we have lost a Subsidian. I'm not sure what happened there. But so he was talking about how they're trying to release their stats to somehow get around the laws that are being used to, or that are now saying loot boxes are basically gambling. All right, let's see if I can get Subsidian back here. What's going on? You there, sir? No, he is not here. All right, I'm going to read through. I'm sorry, just doing something here. See, it says our call is still active, but he is gone. He's just gone. So, all right, I'm going to read through some of the chat messages here. So we have Notional saying, the irony is that Sony said there should be fewer exclusives before the PS4 was released. I guess they forgot that. Yeah, very true. Megan Smart says, and so The cycle continues. I feel like we might need a new console maker to come and compete with Sony. I feel like next gen will definitely change the playing field significantly. Could very well be. Are you back, Cyb?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know what happened there, but you
okay, fine. Discord is having a crappy day, I guess.
Yeah. So
sorry about that. So yeah, I think just to wrap up the EA stuff, they're really trying to force this mobile concept as a way to recover their losses as far as their big console games goes. And what happened there essentially means that as soon as that happens, as soon as they shift their focus onto these mobile games and these mobile experiences to make up for the lost loot box cash that they're making in their bigger titles, the minute they do that, this is over. Like, what's going to happen is what's clearly happening. They're shifting their focus on making more console game or more mobile games and less console games because they make more money on the mobile games. So that's where we're at. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they're seeing dollar signs has been the case for years and
decades.
It's just nobody's buying it anymore. EA, just stop with the nonsense. We know what you're doing. Like,
they won't stop. They are on the downward hill, and unless they get new management in, they're gonna ride this thing. Their stocks are up, their projections are up. A lot of that has to do with the way they advertise themselves as an investment portfolio, and this is going to hurt them hard because eventually they're going to come to a stop with making money. They're going to run into this wall, and everybody's going to boycott them, and then their stockholders are going to riot, and then they're going to flee, and like I said, the next week they're going to lose like 50% of what they're making. But anyways, let's get on to Cyberpunk news and information.
Sure. Well, why don't we I'm just going to read a couple more chat messages here. Megan had an interesting comment. I feel like we might need a new console maker to come in and compete with Sony. What do you think about that? What is the possibility of another console coming out of nowhere and taking a chunk of the market share?
Very low. As far as like in Asia, every time somebody tries, Sony comes in and blocks their attempt at doing so.
How do they do that?
Well, so this is hard to prove, but when you have a certain company that says, hey, we're going to be making a console, we're going to be shipping it here, it's designed to play like all these extra games and all this kind of stuff, suddenly their hardware suppliers get their time and their order time bought out. That's clearly somebody is preventing that from happening in general. So stuff like that. The fact that it's really hard. I mean, Steam tried and they failed. So if Steam can't do it, why on earth, would anybody else be able to?
Fair enough.
Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely.
All right. Yeah. So let's get on with the new information about Cyberpunk. We have some information that relates to the release date and to also the multiplayer. So which do you want to tackle first?
Well, let's do the multiplayer because it's a little bit more relevant. Well, not relevant. It's a little bit easier to back up. So the amount of hiring that they're doing and the wording that they have for the new hiring jobs are all quite clear that they are hiring people for working on a multiplayer of existing systems and existing games that are in production. They only have one game in production. They have another game that they're kind of working on in production. But as we're hearing from the studio, when we hear him go do a press or like an event with his a financial perspective, he comes in and he does.
Who are you talking about?
Adam
Kaczynski.
Never say. Yeah.
Okay, so CEO
the head of the company,
CEO,
the CEO of the company, he goes in, he does these talks with his financial backers, and he said basically he comes out and says, "Hey, look, we're basically doing, we're working on this one game, Cyberpunk 2077. This is our main focus right now, and we have a little bit of people working on the next game after that." That's standard studio workload. So, in a studio, they're much bigger now. They have increased to 3 physical locations. Great, awesome. You do not get a company that size working on multiple games at the same time in the traditional sense. Look at Bethesda. Even with Bethesda, with the way that they've designed Fallout 76, most of the studio, the Maryland Bethesda studio, they are working on the next game. They're working on the Starfield game. And as far as Fallout 76, they have a smaller team there that are working on it, but most of the work has gone to this other studio that they brought on a little while ago, and they canceled that other project that they were working on because it's just they were spending more time focusing on 76. We were all sitting around wondering, what are they, why did they cancel it? What are they working on? It was an arena shooter, and turns out, they moved over to Fallout 76.
Okay.
So most bigger studios, even when you're, closing in on like 1,000 devs, the bulk of your team is going to be focused on one thing at once. And that if you're going to have people working on a different thing, it's going to be at a completely different studio, because that's just the way work flows and the way that it helps them work on it. And we see that with the new Rocklov studio. Rocklov studio, with them, most of their recent hiring and most of their development time is going into multiplayer focused additional work on an existing title, which is Cyberpunk 2077. So again, for what we're getting from Adam when you read between the lines at his financial meetings, and when he's been doing these interviews lately, they've been talking about how they're working on this project. It's they've said that, and this will work into the release date. They said this is pre-alpha, which means that they're still working on a lot of core things within the game. Multiplayer has been stated to be a plan from the beginning, and they have never said, no, we are canceling multiplayer for this. They've always said, no, what we're focusing on is bringing you a great single-player game. They said this over and over and over and over again, and when they were pressed recently that there will be no multiplayer, they go, no, we can't say that there will not be any multiplayer.
Right.
Which again is developer talk for this is being worked on. Now, you might say this is all speculation. I see you, Dragonfly. However, if you go to their hiring quotas and you look at what they've been hiring for recently, a lot of it is multiplayer. They're hiring for several posts as multiplayer. So no, that's not speculation. That's 100% that they are hiring a large team to handle multiplayer technology. Now, whether this is an addition or whether this is a second game within the Cyberpunk universe, it's pretty clear that they're working on this as a function, and that they've had this as a goal since the beginning, because they've said it's been a goal since the beginning. This is not speculation that we're working on multiplayer, but it's for another game, or it could be for Cyberpunk. No, they've said that they've been working on Cyberpunk 2077 as a multiplayer facet to the game. They just don't know where currently is at. And as far as a number, they've hired over 20 people recently. That's from both. You can look at kind of what they've said their numbers of their studio is, and also at the number of job postings that have come up, been taken down, gone back up, taken down, gone back up, taken down. Not the same job posting over and over again, but postings that are, we're hiring a person to do network code, we're hiring somebody to do a different type of implementation for multiplayer. Now we're hiring somebody for menu streamlining for multiplayer. It's like all of these different positions that they've been hiring for are all geared towards, and say very clearly inside the job posting, we are hiring for multiplayer technicians. And this is where they have to be honest. They have to, in the job posting, say, we need people that are exceptionally good at making multiplayer systems, 100%.
Right.
And that request is repeatedly shown up. You don't have somebody saying, okay, we can't say this because then people will start to put two and two together. You can't do that because otherwise, like, you're not going to hire the people that you need right now. So this is really, really, really where these job postings, they're basically flagging what they're doing. They're not confirming what they're doing, but they do have this gigantic flag and this gigantic sign saying, we're working on a giant multiplayer functionality to a game that we are currently working on. Is it Cyberpunk 2076? We can't say that. Are you working on anything else? Well, not really. It's like, okay, well then clearly, and again, it's like if this game is delayed to 2020, as I see you simply, if this game is delayed till then, and we'll get into the release date here, and we'll kind of break that down, then they're not going to be working on a multiplayer ground up for their next game, which could be 5 to 7 years away. Mm-hmm. That's not how you work on technology. That's not how you work on technology in game development. You don't work on core multiplayer systems when you're in the if Cyberpunk really is not coming out until 2020 or 2021, that puts their next game release at least 3 to 4 years after that. We're talking 6 to 7 years potentially for another game. That means that their other game that they're working on, quote unquote, is in like pre-conceptual stage or conceptual stage in and of itself. You don't hire people to work on multiplayer at that stage. You bring in people to work on multiplayer once you have at least have a strong vertical slice of the game. That's just the way that game development works, and nobody else has ever done anything differently. So I'm not suggesting I'm not suggesting that it's impossible, but it's never been done this way before for another faraway title. Right now, we know that Bethesda is working on Elder Scrolls 6, but they haven't even given Elder Scrolls 6 a name. They have no gameplay to show that they showed publicly. Clearly, they're not that far along. They're probably quite far along as far as like direction, story, conceptual. They probably have a bit of a vertical slice for it at this point. But that game is, again, that's like 2 at the very least, 2 at the most 6 years away after the release of Starfield. They're not working on core systems. They're working on core engine, but not core systems.
So, Dragonfly, we haven't said that they've confirmed multiplayer. We are making a deduction based on information.
And we're not the only ones to do this.
Mm-hmm. We are making a deduction based on information. That's not the same as speculation. But no, we haven't said that they've confirmed anything one way or the other.
And we're not the only ones who are putting 2 and 2 together. The No, a couple months ago, put out a video saying, haha, they're not working on multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077. And then this week they said, oh, hey guys, turns out that we think they're working on multiplayer for 2077. It's like, and why? Because they are looking at the information, they're looking at the data and saying, okay, clearly there's a lot of movement going on here in this multiplayer direction. And again, we're not the only ones. There's several other major YouTubers who have looked at the information and gone, yes, this is definitely where they're definitely working on something. And again, this was part of the original pitch for the game. And I suspect I don't think people were talking in a lot of these comments and a lot of these videos going, we're going to get like it's going to be a persistent world where everybody's running around in it. No. The single player story will be a standalone. You're not going to be playing the single player story and have, some Joe Schmo run in and shoot you in the face while you're talking to an NPC. That is 100% not what they're going to be working on. And we've known this from a tech perspective for a while, That's not what they're going for. What they're going for is they're going to give you The Witcher 4, but what they want to do is they want to add on. There was a recent interview where one of the devs was saying, look, it's really important that you have longer retention, and the best way to have longer retention after a game's release is to open it up and have some kind of a multiplayer component to it. That's how you can keep people playing Fallout or Cyberpunk 2077, just like what Bethesda is doing with Fallout 76. Is they're wanting people to spend more time in a universe that they've created between releases of their major titles. The best way to do that is to add a multiplayer capacity that is separate from the single player game and is feeding into that. So that's basically where they're coming from. That's basically where they're headed from when you look at the comments made in the interviews, when you look at their job postings, and when you look at more or less their tech and development structure. And again, the fact that I can't reiterate this enough. When they originally talked about this game, they talked about how they wanted to bring single player and multiplayer. This is their first multiplayer game that they're working on. We know that Adam is working at wanting to bring this up, and he is very particular. If he doesn't feel that the multiplayer is going to be great, then I don't think we'll see it. But I think that they really want to add it. They may add it in a later pack. They may add it into, what Bethesda's done with Fallout 4 is they have Fallout 4, and then a few years later they release a multiplayer version of basically Fallout 4, which is what 76 is. So this is what we can probably expect with Cyberpunk 2077. Will it be at release? At this point, if it truly is 2020 or 2021 game, then there's a good chance, there's basically like 100% chance that it will contain it in some way, shape, or form at release. Will it, if this game drops in 2019, I doubt we'll see the multiplayer, because what they've been hiring for are still people that are used in the early days of the multiplayer. We'll probably see it as an update or an expansion down the road, and that's what they want, because the basis of Cyberpunk is a multiplayer experience.
So, to respond to Notional here, they should do proper co-op instead. Well, it could be co-op. When we say multiplayer, we don't know what kind of
I doubt it would be co-op. I really doubt it would be co-op.
You doubt it would be co-op.
Frankly, co-op, the way that works, the technology for that is a little bit on the tricky side, and it's difficult to pull off with the newer engines. So
right, but we have talked before about it, the possibility of, we've talked before about the social hub, or the possibility of doing the drop-in, help your friends with missions.
Yeah, and Megan actually brings up a very, very important point. Once again, the major, the point of the money they got from the Polish government was purely to implement multiplayer. It was not there for anything else. It was there 100% for the multiplayer component. And because they haven't given that money back, and they've already passed the due date in which an update is required for that, yes, it's like they have to update the government. They can't just take the money and then disappear with it. They have to have somebody from the government come out and check their progress on stuff. And this money was taken and was given to them for the pure functionality of adding multiplayer. This has been well known for well over 2 years. That this money coming into them was for this multiplayer mode. And again, it's like they have to give the money back, or they have to change what the request for the money is for. If they don't do either of those things, they're not in they as far as Poland goes, they have lied and then taken money, which is a crime. You can't do that. So, well, I mean, you can try, but it's like it doesn't go over very well. Poland is not a mega rich country. They don't just throw money around to anybody asking for money for business ideas and then giving them no giving them no solid return on that. What they went and asked the government for was this money to work on multiplayer, and after what we saw at E3, it appears as if they're really, really digging down into this when you look at what they're hiring for. And again, that what they're hiring for is non-stop, huge amounts of working on multiplayer, working on network systems, and then also the fact that no, this isn't for another game because this money was taken out for Cyberpunk. So that either means a second Cyberpunk game, or it means a kind of like a Cyberpunk light game like Fallout 76, where it's just this tacked on additional thing that comes out shortly after. Yeah, basically that. So now let's talk release date. So release date, Adam this week was at another was doing another interview, and during this financial thing.
Adam Kaczynski, CEO of CD Projekt.
Yes, talking about CEO of CDPR, and he said quite clearly that the gameplay that was featured at the E3 for the journalists is that it was a pre-alpha. So pre-alpha, suddenly a lot of us in the industry goes, oh, it's pre-alpha. Oh, well, okay, so if it's pre-alpha and their average development time was like 4.5 years for some of their previous games, does that mean that we're basically like, 3 or 4 years away? And so that's what a lot of people are asking, and what you can kind of read into that. But you have to be a little careful to read into that, because when they were working on The Witcher 3, they only had like 300 people. Now they have almost 700 people. It's a massive increase to their company. They're hiring at a ridiculous rate. Just go and look at what they're hiring for. You go to their webpage for hiring, and there's at least, I checked the other day, and there was like 20 some odd positions being hired for. And some of those positions, they'll hire 3 or 4 people for that position. They're hiring programmers, not just a programmer. So they're hiring more than one. And this kind of gives us a bit of an insight. So if they're in the pre-alpha stage, but it's been brought up quite a bit from what other people's pre-alpha stage. You look at other people's pre-alpha stage, it's nowhere near this polished. I mean, hell, as far as EA is concerned, they would probably release the game as is, because EA likes to throw unfinished stuff out the door all the time. So basically, this is a little bit of a sketchy kind of thing to look at, because what we're seeing is that they're working on this title. In comparison to where they've been at before, it would take them 3 to 4 years to finish where they're at right now. I think when we look at how much they've expanded and how much they brought in, and then the fact that they've said again that this is a current gen game as well as a next gen game, they keep stressing that point. So either they're stressing that point because the other consoles are a lot, they're coming out, say within the next 12 to 18 months. If that's the case, then that's huge, and that would allow that would allow them to kind of cover for the consoles, and saying, okay, well, the new consoles are actually due out in 18 months. So tell people that you're working on this for a for the current gen system, so that you're not confirming that we're working on these new consoles and that they'll be out next year. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that CDPR would put their reputation on the line, promise again and again and again in multiple interviews that they are making this game for current gen, and then release it exclusively for the next gen title, because the game's not going to be out for 4 years, and by then we're going to have all the new consoles are going to be out in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, you don't release a game a year and a half after the new consoles have been out, and then put out a game that can barely run on the previous systems and put that out for that. You don't really do that. You do that when you come out with the game, and then within the next 12 months the new consoles come out. You do get that happening, and that has happened a lot. I mean, just again look into the history. It's been pretty common. That's a pretty common strategy. So I think what we're looking at is we're looking at this game definitely coming out before the new consoles are coming out, and we suspect where they are at with the new consoles is that they're entering the kind of probably the 24-month period between now and when a new console comes out. So again, this is kind of hinting more and more at the 2020 date, and maybe even early 2020, maybe fall or late 2020. So if that's the case, then that's kind of where that's sitting at. That gives them the time to be able to put this game through the proper alpha and then a proper beta, and then put it out a release at the numbers that their studio can have. So that's where we're at. The big update here being that Adam, the CEO of CDPR, has confirmed that the game is in pre-alpha state, meaning that it's a little bit further away than we and some other people were originally thinking. But because the studio is much bigger, it's going to be coming out sooner in comparison to where that same time frame took them to go from pre-alpha to release when it comes to The Witcher 3 or Blood and Wine. It's like they're clearly a lot further along than that, and they have a much larger studio. So that same progression of time is going to be a lot shorter than it was when they started working on The Witcher 3, and they had to basically showcase the work and get it all out the door within the years that they had. I'm putting that weird. I'm not saying that correctly, but yeah. So Adam has confirmed pre-alpha. Pre-alpha. Basically, that means expect this game probably 2020, which means that we are going to see a lot more drops and a lot more content over the next little while, and we might even see again, if this multiplayer news is true, at some point we'll see a multiplayer beta, because it kind of has to more or less happen, unless it's like a really like closed multiplayer system, like just a deathmatch thing, then I guess maybe. But if it's like a seamless co-op, then yeah, maybe that too. It's kind of out there. I'm sorry, I'd love to give you some like hard data, but that you kind of have to read between the lines of what Adam says at these meetings and then at the interviews. They're not saying that there will be no multiplayer. They've refused to confirm that. So between that and the release date, we can kind of sit back, we can kind of look at it and say, well, then that means that they're working on it at this pace at which they're hiring. We can expect to see this game, and we can expect to see multiplayer or more news about multiplayer by 2019. And by then we'll also have an update on the state of the game by 2019. So
right,
yeah, expect to hear a lot more at their own big convention that they do, the Promised Land convention, in the fall. I suspect strongly that we'll get a fair bit of more info, as well as info at Gamescom. We're going to be getting a lot more interviews. They're clearly, heavy in production. So we'll see where that goes.
Excellent. All right. Well, we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about the things we love to talk about. You can also meet people to game with, stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. And I just want to close off here by talking about, well, just briefly mentioning that a lot of what we do here, a lot of what Cyb does as a data analyst, is make deductions. Deductions are not the same thing as speculation. Speculation is taking a single piece of data and extrapolating that in one of any infinite number of directions that could be wildly correct or wildly incorrect. Deductions that I've watched Cyb work for a long time, and he brings together many multiple data points for anything he puts out there. So yes, we do make deductions here about certain things, and it's about certain things you have to make deductions. Not everything is crystal clear when you're trying to make predictions in this industry. So just wanted to kind of clear that up, and also thank everybody for supporting this show and for the great conversation in the chat. Thank you especially to our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, Jeranon, new supporter this week, and our 2 anonymous supporters as well. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and sub if you appreciate this weekly content. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, we thank you for your follows and likes on iTunes. Thank you for subscribing and reviewing the show. And hey, feel free to join us next Saturday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time. That is 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the live show where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. Part 2 of the first episode of This Is Our Apocalypse is coming out this Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe and have your notifications on for that. My name is Ashenity, and by the way, please, if you appreciate this content, please slam that like button. It likes it rough. Tell those YouTube bots this is content that you appreciate. On behalf of Cyberpunk, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.